Hey now everybody, this is Professor Island, and today we're talking about literary analysis, specifically the critical theory aspects of it, and I'm going to give you an overview of critical approaches and critical perspectives. The individual perspectives themselves are explained elsewhere on this website, but essentially here's the overview of what you're going to be doing in English 103 or any class of mine that's above that. Literary analysis on a basic level, on a formalistic level, like you did in English 101, focused on the work itself. In other words, we read a story, we look at the symbolism, irony, conflict within the story, and we follow that all the way through. All of this being directly by the author. The author wants you to see the symbols, the author wants you to see the conflict, and essentially you're following that through. However, once we get out of English 101, and we move on to 103 and above, what we're looking at is how different people are going to translate a work. Basically, the understanding is this. Whenever an author writes a work, they put into it whatever ideas they have. Very often there's a theme and a concept, and then they write their story, they write their poem, they write their song, they make a movie, they draw, make a painting, whatever, and then they send it out. What that work means has just as much, if not more, to do with who views it than it does with what the author intended. And as soon as that work leaves the author's hands, it then becomes fair game for people to observe it. The critical perspectives, critical approaches idea essentially is that the translation of the work is partly predicated on what the author intended, and there you get things like Marxist criticism, maybe biographical criticism, maybe even historical context, and other elements really of what the author perceives it. And this is where we get reader response, cultural criticism, psychoanalytical criticism, feminist criticism, in which the observer is going to translate the work through a set of preconceived notions. This is an important element of the class. This is why it's called critical thinking. Most people are very comfortable expressing their opinion and their views on what something is and what something is not, whether something's good or whether something's bad. And when you ask them why, it really gets down to, because I feel that way, because I like this and I don't like that, because I like this kind of character, I like this kind of plot, or I like this kind of music, or I don't like that. But when we start to analyze it from an objective standpoint, when we step back a little bit and we ask ourselves, why does this person like this work and this person does not, we begin to realize that each person carries with them a set of preconceived notions that are based on who they are, how they grew up, their gender, their race or ethnicity, their religion, their age, their value system, all these things. And the critical perspectives pick up on these things and force the critic, you, to narrow down that idea and to look at a work and to translate it from one of these particular critical perspectives in a paragraph. And then you take another critical perspective and you translate the work again, now in a different paragraph. And the idea is that the objective analysis is going to reveal that any given work has multiple meanings based on the different critical perspectives. That there's no one absolute correct answer, unless of course you ask the author. But essentially that the works really depend on who's observing it and what their values are. And therefore, as part of the class, you're going to be identifying a critical perspective, applying it correctly through the work by showing how it translates the work, using secondary sources that support that analysis, and then moving on in another paragraph to a different critical perspective that will translate it in a different way. It is imperative that you're able to do that. We're not looking for whether or not you like these critical perspectives. We're not looking for whether or not you agree with them. You must be able to identify them. You must be able to use them. You must be able to demonstrate your knowledge of them. Whether you like them or not is immaterial, because I'm not going to ask your opinion. I'm not going to ask how you feel about the works themselves or about the critical perspectives being applied to them. Instead, you're going to show me that you know how to do that. And if you can do that, you will be successful in this class. As part of that, during the course of the semester, we will go through these one at a time. We will demonstrate through discussion how they apply to the various works that we're going to cover in class. And the idea is that during the class discussion, during the chat discussion, as we work with these, you're developing an idea as to not the meaning of the work that we're analyzing, not the meaning of a poem or a play, but how the critical perspective affects something. And that means you can take that critical perspective mentality and apply it to anything you watch on television, any movie you see, any painting you view, any book you read. All right. Keep that in mind as you go through this. And again, keep in mind that you're trying to understand the critical perspective and understand where it's coming from, understand its rules and how it applies to a work. And if you can do that, you'll be okay. All right? Stay in touch.